Zoom in the photo, edit the photo, capture the photo, tap to focus, cycle between the raw and JPEG mode, change your shutter speed, ISO, exposure, white balance. Okay, dekho. So a modern digital camera is a work of art and a very interesting machine that has evolved over the past decades worth of research and work on cameras and science, evolution, everything goes into the digital camera to what it is right now. And so I think everyone should know about it so that we all can appreciate what a beauty of a machine a modern camera is. Now with the evolution of time, the cameras have also undergone many several changes, but some of the essential key elements have remained the same. And that's exactly what we're discussing today. So in this video, I'll be going over what are the different parts of a camera. Let's go. Starting with number one, the sensor. So the sensor is one of the most important part of a camera. It is because of this sensor itself that we are even able to take pictures. If there is no sensor, there are no photos. So yeah, sensor is very important. It is this black glass rectangular thingy at the heart of a camera that you see. So what happens is that whenever we try to take a picture of anything with a camera, and when we hit the record button, what actually happens is that the light from whatever we are trying to capture falls on the sensor, and the sensor tries to make an image out of the light data that it is getting, because the sensor has a different data point which is known as megapixels, and that's how the sensor is able to reproduce the image by the data of the light that is falling on it. So let's say I'm doing an exposure for 1 second, so the sensor will capture the light data for 1 second only, and say I'm doing it for like 10 seconds, it will do it for a whole of 10 seconds. So the exposure will be different in both of them. So one is of 1 second and the other is of 10 seconds. So that was the sensor. Next up, the shutter. So a shutter is also a very important part of the camera, which allows the light. Think of it as like a door which allows the light to fall on the sensor, and then the sensor creates the picture. So shutter has two purposes in the camera. Number one, it is to allowing the light to fall on the sensor so that we get a good image by the light data that falls on the sensor. And the second purpose that it solves is the protecting the sensor from the dust and all of the damages that happens from the atmosphere and all the external damage that could happen to a sensor, because a sensor is a very sensitive part. So you might want to take care of it. And also, if you're thinking to touch the sensor with your bare hands, please do not. The camera gods are going to eat you alive. Please don't even think about it. Also, the sensor is responsible for making that sweet sound when we click a picture. It sounds something like. Next up, buttons. So there are many buttons on a camera, and without buttons the camera is really a very complex machine, because frankly cameras of today the digital cameras are real complex, and there are no buttons, then it would be difficult for you to even get around the first setting, the second setting, because cameras are loaded with menus these days. And so buttons come in very handy, but it does intimidate a lot of people. I was also one of them, because the buttons look so complex on a camera, but they are there for a reason. That's what you need to understand. They might not be beginner friendly, but once you get to know it, it will appeal to you, because it kind of switches between different modes of photography that you can do. So say aperture priority, shutter priority, and everything that you can do with the camera. And also you can do many types of combinations with the camera settings, like going to the manual mode, changing the aperture, ISO, the shutter speed. And then when you will become a little pro in camera, then you will say, maybe they're not that bad after all, right? Next up, the viewfinder. So a viewfinder is that part of the camera which is present at the top of the back. So where the screen and the buttons are, in the top left, the top right, there will be a small window little thing that is called the viewfinder. The purpose of a viewfinder is basically to help the photographer compose a shot, or for a videographer to even try to see what the frame will actually look like when they will start rolling or when they will start pressing the capture button. that helps a lot to the photographers and the videographers. So yeah, that is the viewfinder, and there are two types of viewfinders in the market. One is the OVF, the optical viewfinder. Second is the EVF, the electronic viewfinder. I won't go into much detail, but I'll just give you some points. So EVF is the more newer technology, and so it is preferred by the photographers these days, because what happens is in an OVF is you can only see what the camera is seeing. Like, it will only tell you what the camera is seeing. It's just a piece of glass which is separating what you are trying to capture and you. So OVF works like that. But in EVF, you can not only see what you are going to capture, but you can also see what settings you are working with. So say the shutter speed, the ISO, the aperture, whatever you can set in a camera, you can change and mess around with it with the electronic viewfinder itself, and you can also visualize how the picture will look like when you will click it. You can see how the image will actually turn out like. So that's one of the advantages of EVF, but it's a video for another day. Now next up, the lens aperture. So a lens is not technically a part of the camera, but it kinda is. So knowing what a lens aperture is very important. Now probably you all know what an aperture is. It is basically the point-to-point gap between an object that it can create within itself. Now apply that to lenses. So basically the lens, basically the gap that a lens can create within itself is called the aperture of the lens. We mostly denote it in decimal terms. So like 1.2, 1.4, 2.0, 3.5, 4.6, 8, 10, 16, etc. And we also, when we say an aperture for a lens, we often prefix it by the F word. No, it's not that, but yeah, it kinda is. So say a friend of mine comes to me and asks me that, hey bro, can I borrow your lens? And I'll say, no bro, it's a f1.2 lens, it's a very expensive lens and you can just off. Now next up, the screen. Essential part of the camera is a screen. We all know what a screen is. I don't need to explain it, but I will still explain certain bits of it. So screen is really essential to a camera. When we click a picture, we see through the viewfinder of the camera. So before taking the picture, we see through the viewfinder, and after taking the camera, we will see it on the screen. And the screen of a camera is one of those things that can really elevate your experience with a camera, or can downgrade the experience with the camera. It really performs lots of functions. You can zoom in the photo, edit the photo, capture the photo, tap to focus, cycle between the raw JPEG mode, change your shutter speed, ISO, exposure, white balance, and basically a shit ton of things that you can do with the screen. So yeah, it is very versatile in terms of what it can do, and that's why I'm saying the screen of a camera is one thing you should know about. And so that concludes the video, guys. This was the video. I hope you got to learn something from this video, and if you did, do hit the like button. Also help me out by sharing this video with your friends. It would be very meaningful to me. Also please subscribe to the channel, and also turn on the bell notifications, because I'll be releasing new videos very soon. I'll try to be more regular with it, so you do not have to wait much long. So that's why you might want to turn on the subscribe button and the bell notifications also. So yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.